Nice to
Totally
meet
hear
you.
you. Wonderful to meet you too. I've been excited for this conversation. Just a little bit of a background. So I was a psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist for many years, and then I dove really deep into attachment theory, and then I started really teaching that online, and it pulled me out of my private practice, just so I could go online and just teach everywhere about it.
Wow.
So now I'm focusing primarily on attachment theory, and that's what I teach, and then focused in on that even I've been teaching quite extensively into avoidant men, especially.
Mm,
That's the population I've been fixating on,
okay.
and in particular, not demonizing them like a lot of other. Unfortunately, a lot of other attachment creators demonize avoidant men.
Mm.
You know, they're the scum of the earth. Put them on an island, nuke the island, kind of thing.
Wow.
They
Wow.
overly sympathize with a lot of the anxious women, and then what I think that does is really foster this greater divide where the men feel like they can't take any advice from anybody, and the women are getting advice basically to trash their relationships and demand. And something I really loved from your material is that women are not supposed to be stomping their foot, demanding, pushing hard, right? That's not the feminine perspective.
Right.
And I think that the world needs to hear voices very much like yours in particular, which is why I'm having you here, so that they can hear a much healthier approach for feminine strength. I think one
Yeah.
thing you talk about that it really resonates with me is the strength of the feminine, but not in a masculine sort of strength
Right.
sense, right? That's something
Right.
I'd love to talk about here today is what does a strong woman actually look like besides if we divorce ourselves from all the masculinity terms
Yeah.
and try to define feminine strength in that capacity, and then how do we define the role and maybe even responsibility of men in fostering that feminine strength,
Yeah.
and then what can men safely expect from women in the modern day? How can we hold women accountable for giving that in return, and
Yeah.
not in a not in a hurtful how hold them accountable sense, but how do we get
Yeah.
men and women
Yeah.
back to the table to be men and women?
Right. I know. I know things have changed so much over the years. And I do. I kind of, if there were someone to blame, and I know we shouldn't blame, but I just think the feminist movement has had its good parts. I'm all about strong, empowered women, but not at the expense of your marriage, and not at the expense of your children, and not at, we don't, to have a strong woman doesn't mean we have to diminish and disempower men. Like, both people empowered in the relationship makes an empowered relationship. Right? But if one's disempowered and one's empowered, it's going to be off balance. And I think that women can be soft and quiet and still have such a strength and so much power just in their quietness. Now, I'm not saying that women who are loud and boisterous, I mean, I'm probably considered to be a louder woman, just my personality style. But I think a woman that is emotionally healthy with a healthy self-esteem is a strong woman. I mean, strength doesn't mean big muscles, it doesn't mean a really big salary makes you strong. It's more in your disposition, your attitude. And I think, like you said, a soft woman is also a strong, powerful woman in a feminine way.
Let me give you some context here. So I've been
Okay.
married for 15 years.
Okay.
When I married my wife, she had graduated valedictorian from her high school. She was given a full scholarship to Harvard for business.
Wow.
She said, "No,
Wow.
thank you. I want to go get married and have children."
Oh,
So she
I love.
left and she ran her own business for a while as we were working. She put me through graduate school really running her own business, and I worked on the side. And then once we reached a point where I could really support the family instead, we swapped roles. She became a stay-at-home wife. She got pregnant. She had our children. But prior to me, she did hunting. She grew up hunting with black powder rifles,
Wow.
skinning and gutting her own deer
Oh
and
my
butchering her own meat.
God. Oh my
She before she met me, she used to beat the crap out of any guy that tried to get fresh with her and her friends. She hospitalized one guy in a fist fight one time. She does weightlifting, and when she was pregnant with our first child, she was trying to induce labor in week 40, and so she just ran 5 miles on our treadmill, belly bouncing and trying like, all right, it's gonna come out, it's gonna come out. So when people always say, "Oh, Adam, you talk about women and you talk about femininity, you probably
God.
just want women to go back to the 1950s." Well, no, I don't think that in the 1950s women weren't usually gutting and skinning their own deer and running 5 miles on a treadmill. So I'm very much for that, and I have 3 daughters.
Oh.
They're very loud women as well. I think that the happiest women usually are the loudest, and not
Right,
in an angry
right,
kind of loud, but because
right.
they're so free and so safe that they
Yes,
can be as loud as they choose. And then how
that's
do they
right.
use that loudness is really what
Yeah,
I have circled back around to. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, for everybody out there who's listening, I would love for them to know more about you right now, because I know that your message needs to be amplified here. Tell people at home a little bit about what they should know about you.
Okay. Well, I am going on 44 years of marriage. My husband and I, we have 3 adult children, and we just had our 6th grandchild. And I'm very proud of all 3 of my kids. I feel like that's one of the things we are most proud of. I think my husband and I is that we have really good kids, great family. And just to add to that, what you were saying about your wife and your daughters, when my second born, my first daughter, went to college. It was her first semester in college, and she was sitting in the front row, and the teacher was going around asking everybody what they wanted to do in their life. And she said, I just want to get married and be a mom. And you know what her college professor said in front of the entire class? She looked at my daughter and she said, that's pathetic. And then she made her go sit at the back of the room. She said, I don't like the way you look at me. You need to sit back there. Isn't that? And my daughter is the sweetest, kindest. I mean, everybody. She is the sweetheart of our church. I mean, she just is this. Her demeanor is sweet and kind, and she had to go sit in the back of the room. And this teacher was so intimidated by her, which I just could not get over. Because and you know what my daughter is doing now? She's been married 15 years. She's got 2 boys. She's married to a fire captain, as happy as can be, stay at home mom, and she's as happy as can be. It's
See,
just so fun.
this is one reason I wanted to pull you on, because not only is your message overwhelmingly wonderful and very truthful, but you're not speaking from a theoretical space. You're not speaking from an intellectual space as much. I mean, you are, but you are speaking from proof. You are living proof of the things that you say. You have already won. You have the feather in your cap, and you are now coming back telling people, look, this is how you live an amazing, wonderful life. And anybody who tries to argue with you really has to argue with your decades and decades and decades of happy success. So
Yeah.
everybody out there listening, everybody, they love to say, well, Adam's been married 15 years. Even no, this is experience. This is the goal right here. So listen to her, please.
And it's not like we've had a perfect marriage. I mean, you've been married anything over 10 years. You're walking through a lot of different stuff over the years, and we've had lots of losses and lots of trials and stuff. But we just, someone said, well, why how'd you even get into talking about relationships? And from a very young age, and I came from a divorced home, and my husband's mom died when he was 5, and then he was raised by kind of a very dysfunctional father.
Mhm.
And I didn't mention we pastor a church also. We've been in the
Mhm.
ministry our whole adult lives, and I've always been very interested in family and marriage, and I knew that I wanted to do it different than my parents did, and I knew I never wanted to have a divorce. I knew I wanted to raise my own kids, didn't want to farm them out to daycare. And that's the other thing with the feminist movement. They taught women that if you're just home being a mom, like there's so much more in you, and you're nobody if that's all you're doing. And I just bucked that. I probably started going down that feminist route because my mom taught me, because my dad, they divorced when she had 4 kids, and he still was a dad and paid child support and stuff, but we didn't see him as much, of course. But she said, always have something to fall back on. Don't ever depend on a man. Always have something. She had nothing. And then she had to go get a job, and she had to leave us kids. And she had it really hard. And so I was not going to be that. I'm going to have a job. I'm going to support myself. I'm getting college educated, and I will never be dependent on a man. And then I accepted the Lord at about 18 years old. I'm in college. Right after I accepted the Lord, I meet my husband, and my whole worldview changed. And then we said, okay, we're getting married. We're young. I was 19. He was 22. And we're like, we know we're really young, but we're Christians, and you don't have sex outside of marriage as Christians, right? And he wanted to be a pastor. And he was like, I either got to get married or break up because we're really into each other and we can't, this is going to go places we don't want to go fast. And I was like, I'm not ready to get married. There's no way. I'm way too young. I got to get college and all this stuff. And so I said, but I don't want to break up either. I mean, we were falling in love. And so we did it. And we said, well, we're going to finish school. We're not going to have kids for 5 years. And then 4 months into marriage, I'm pregnant. And we're like, this wasn't part of the plan. But then we were like, okay, well, so we feel like we were kids raising kids. And again, I read everything I could because I knew I was young. I knew I didn't know everything. And then I dropped out of college because I was pregnant and I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be home. I wanted to cook. I wanted to bake. I wanted to be a housewife. And I read everything and get my hands on and in how to raise kids and about marriage and sustaining a long-term marriage. And that really is where I've gotten all my information because I applied it to us. And I've been teaching seminars to men and women for, last 25 years. And it's basically just everything that I've learned, everything, all the authors, all the books, all my teachers and mentors, I'm just now passing that on. So I think that is what has helped me and why I have such a passion for it, because I want, how they say, you as a psychologist know this, that as adults, we want to right what was wrong in our childhood, right? We want to make it different and make it right. And I'm sure that's what was in me also. And both my husband and I, we like to have fun. We're really happy, optimistic people. And we knew that if we were going to stay married, it couldn't be a bad marriage because we have to be happy and we're not about suffering. So we're going to be married. It's going to be a good one, darn it. And we're going to do everything we can to make it good because we like being happy.
I love it. I love it. There's one thing in particular I would love to dive in here right now.
Okay.
One thing that my wife in particular has told me has been very challenging for her is finding information on how to be a feminine woman inside of a marriage with a good man, right? Yeah. So one thing that I keep finding is, and many of my female clients are the same way, how do I be feminine in a right way? I have decided I want to love a good man who is worthy of my trust. He is pretty masculine, but how am I supposed to be feminine? What does that mean? Where do I go? There's nobody to teach them. And just trigger warning for any of the alcoholic single girl bosses out there who are saying, how dare you tell me to be feminine? Turn this off. This probably isn't for you, but for the women out there who want to love somebody and want to love a man and want to be that fullness of feminine energy for yourself. I have an answer I have prepared for those women. It's probably a little bit more masculine in its approach. I would love to hear your take. Okay. What does it mean to be a feminine woman in a relation with a man, a masculine, trustworthy man? Let's put that on the front because the women always say he doesn't deserve me. So what does that mean?
Well, femininity, that energy, we all are made up of energy, right? There's energy in all of us. And there's the masculine energy, the feminine energy. Feminine energy is receiving, being receptive, responders, fixing up, beautifying, like feminine energy. That's why women, they want to make their house a home. They want to fix it up. They walk into an office and they say, okay, how can I make this better? They walk in the kitchen. How can I make it better? They look at their children. How can I make them better? They look at their husband. How can I fix them up? It's like we're all about supporting and enhancing and beautifying. And like feminine energy, like anybody, it's so funny because I'll get comments on my social media from men saying, like I'll say things about between feminine and masculine, and they'll say, I'll say something like this. So men don't normally, generally speaking, don't bond through sex. Okay. Women bond through sex because femininity bonds through sex, but masculinity, sex is just, it's kind of mechanical for a man. And men will say, no, I bonded with my wife through sex. And I'm not saying after marriage, but like you hear so many stories of these hookups and the man is attracted to her physically and he doesn't call her back the next day because she slept with them. They don't know each other. And I always tell women, men will sleep with women they don't like. If he's physically attracted to you, he doesn't have to be in love with you or even like you. He will sleep with you. But women, we get emotionally attached. He slept with me. He must love me. No, women get attached emotionally. Men don't. That's why I say, do not sleep with a man, until you are in a committed, monogamous, ring on the finger relationship. But anyway, Anyway, oh, so different men will buck me and say, no, that's not true. I bond. And then I look up their profile and I'll say to myself, okay, he's either a musician or an artist or a poet or a writer. And sure enough, on their profile, musician, artist, because see, those men have more feminine energy. Has nothing to do with sexuality. I'm not saying he's a homosexual. I'm just saying that designers, decorators, fashion designers, hair people, cosmetologists, that's all feminine energy. They're fixing up, they're beautifying. Lots of men have feminine energy. No problem. That's fine. We both have both, right? We both have. And like when a woman is going to work, I mean, that she's in her masculine energy. There's deadlines. She has to produce. She has to call the shots at times. When a mom is a stay-at-home mom and dad's not on the premise, she's in her masculine because she is protecting and providing for those children. She's calling the shots. She's in charge. But now, when the man comes home, she needs to change back into her feminine role. And so that is, nurturing, comforting, supporting, serving. It doesn't mean we're doormats. Yes, submitting. But as we know, and women get all cattywampus when I say the word submit. But if you have a good man who's a leader, who's in his masculine, that you trust and you respect, and he loves you well, it's natural for us to submit. We don't mind. We're just the feminine in us. And the Bible also says we submit to one another also. So that's when I think of feminine, it's not even putting a dress on. Because they'll say, well, I know, but I have to wear this to work. I'm not even talking about your clothing. Because, like lots of men like women that are in workout clothes, the jocks, like your wife, like that's super attractive, just, whatever your flavor of woman is, for a man. But it doesn't mean you have to be in dress and heels. It's more of an attitude. It's the disposition. And so I tell people, women, because you hear so much about, well, we're equal and equal rights for men and women. Yes, we are all equal in the eyes of God. Humans are all equal. We all have value. We all have the same value, but our roles are not equal. We are different in our roles. Women are kind of in charge of the home, especially if she is a stay-at-home mom. She rules the roost, right? Men are out there working to bring home the bacon. So we're both doing our part. We're both doing our role. As long as you have one masculine and one feminine, a relationship will work because they're attracted to each other. Opposites attract. So I tell women, when you are at your most feminine, again, your attitude, letting him be the man, letting him be the initiator, letting him lead, not trying to be in control of everything. Like my husband, when my kids were growing up, he traveled a lot. He traveled 49 weekends in a year for 10 years in a row. Okay. So he was gone a lot. And so I'm in charge of the house, right? I mean, I'm at home and stay at home mom. And I did little side jobs. I taught group exercise, personal training, and little things over the years, but mostly at home. And when he came home, the first day he'd get home, we'd always get in an argument. And then I started realizing, because I was in my masculine and he's the masculine, he comes home and he's like, no, we're going to do it this way. And I'm like, no, that's not how we do it. Don't mess up. I got a schedule with the kids. And he comes home, he's Disneyland. Dad, no, we're going to take the kids. We're going to go to dinner. I'm like, no, they have to do homework. They have school in the morning. Don't mess up my routine. And of course the kids wanted to do everything Dad wanted to do. And I'm like, this is not fair. Now I'm the bad guy. But I had to take a step back and get into my feminine energy, or we are going to be bucking heads, right? And so I had to learn to do that. I had to learn, okay, the boss, the masculine, he's back on the premises, go into your feminine. And so some women will say, well, how do I change back into my feminine? And I tell them, like, if you're out there working and you're in your masculine, when you go home, take a shower, take a bath, change your clothes. I tell single women, don't ever go on a date straight from work. Like, take a shower, change your clothes, get into your girl mode, because you're going on a date with a man. He doesn't want to date a dressed up man that has boobs. Okay. He wants to date a woman. So, and there's things you can do, like music brings out your feminine energy, dancing, and I say, go home, take a bath, have a glass of wine, put some music on, light some candles, like get into that feminine mode where, pamper yourself. Whenever we feel pampered, that brings up our oxytocin hormone for sure. And it makes us feel girly. Get your hair done, get your nails done, get a massage, where you're being pampered. Either you're getting pampered yourself or your husband's pampering you. It brings out the feminine in us. So, the masculine energy is he's the protector, provider, conqueror, challenger, competitor. Um, he's focused, single focused on the end result. That's all masculine. So, and that's awesome. And we want men to be masculine. We want them to work hard and be successful. That's all awesome. But he can't come home and have to compete with his woman. He's been doing that all day long at work. He needs to come home and just be able to relax, and she needs to be in her feminine so he can be in his masculine. Does that help?
I agree with this. Oh, yes. Fantastic. No. So, and one reason I love your answer is because so many women have equated femininity with passivity, being passive, as if that's
Yeah.
something that you should try to be. That is not. Femininity is the opposite of passivity. You are not feminine when you are passive. You are being passive. You're an object, right?
Yeah.
A strong feminine woman is anything but passive. You
Right.
are
Yeah.
actively supporting. You are actively driving. A big distinction that I make in masculine and feminine communication, right? Masculine communication makes statements. It is
Yeah.
directive. It is telling. It is imperative. You will do this. This is what we will do. And feminine communication is very much asking questions, clarifying. What do you think of this? How about this? Tell me more about this. Help me understand this, right?
Right.
In a
Right.
company, the CEO is a very masculine role. However, the COO, the chief operations officer, is often a very feminine energy role, because you have to take direction from the CEO and then implement. Right, a strong woman implements. She
Right.
guides. She teaches.
Right.
She can switch. Whether if she's speaking up the hierarchy, she's feminine. Down the hierarchy, maybe she's masculine. That's the case.
Right. Right.
Fantastic. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we've really distinguished out, and bless her heart, she's never made me really have to fight or compete with her in a masculine feminine role. She has always said, okay, you tell me, you provide the vision, and then I will take that vision and I'll make it better. I
Execute it.
said, great,
Yeah.
fantastic. I'll execute it and make it better.
Yes.
Cool. Let's make it practical. Let me tell you the
Yeah.
vision. Okay.
Yeah.
And that has been, right now she's outside. We just bought a farm with 5 acres, and we're up
Okay.
in Wisconsin. So there's all kinds of wild animals. There's a bear
Oh,
that occasionally roams the property. There's coyotes that roam through the woods, through the weeds. And there's badgers occasionally that roll through that will try to attack you or attack the kids. So she's out
oh,
there. Usually she's got a implement of violence, shall we say, strapped to her hip or near at hand. In case she has to fight off a badger or something that comes at the kids. But she's out there playing with them right now, running and playing with the dogs. If I step out there, she shifts out of that leadership role and into a role of listening with me, saying, okay, what
yeah.
should we be doing? What's the next step? And
Yeah.
now the role there, guys, the piece there is that the man has to actually step into that role. You can't walk in and be, well, I don't know, it's fine, whatever, babe, whatever you want to do. You have to step in and be the man, and that's
Right.
what's required
Right.
of you. And again, you don't have to be an angry, aggressive, crazy
Yes.
steroid guy. You step forward and you say, all right, what are we doing here? All right, what's going
Right.
on? All right, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we present this? Here's an idea. Hey, why don't we all gather around? We'll do this and have this activity. Be a
Yeah.
present father. Be a
Yeah.
present man. Right.
Yeah.
That's the role that I'm seeing. And what do you feel is the role, if any, of men in helping foster this femininity? Because I'm a big advocate. I don't think feminine energy can exist without the safe perimeter
Right.
provided by masculinity. I think that's what's missing in modern day.
Yeah.
What do you think is the role of masculine men
Yeah,
in
because I think
providing
if
feminine
if
energy?
the man, the masculine doesn't lead, doesn't step up and is responsible and accountable to fulfill his obligations and responsibilities, because I hear this all the time. And the women say, well, he doesn't do it, so I have to. He won't step up, so I have to. And I think it's that age old, um, Ahab and Jezebel. Ahab won't stand up, so Jezebel won't sit down. Right? But if the man will stand up, and because I do see a lot of passive men in couples, and we can be around a couple a very short time, and I can always tell who wears the pants. who the man is and who the woman is. And it's just so obvious because the man is quiet, doesn't say anything. The woman does all the talking, makes all the plans, tells everybody what's going on, and the man just follows her around, you know. And again, if a man wants to be the man, he's got to take responsibility. He's got to keep his word. He's got to do what he says he's got to do. He's got to show up. Or she's not going to trust you. I gave this example years ago where I was dealing with a couple, and she said, you know, I hear what you're saying, but it's like he won't step up and you know the bills are right there, and he says he's going to take care of the bills, and he just doesn't get down to writing the bills. And I said, don't do it. And she goes, well, if I don't do it, it won't get done. I said, no, let it not get done. And she goes, what? She goes, what if they turn electricity out? I go, let them. And she goes, oh my God. And she did it. And the electricity got turned off. And she was just like, you said you were going to do the bills. That was your responsibility. I didn't do it because you said you were going to do it. And it woke him the heck up. And she said, but see, she just decided I'm going into feminine. I'm not going to overstep his authority because he said he was going to do it. So if a man wants his wife to submit to him and to be in her feminine and to be nurturing and comforting and supported and all of the good things that women have to give, then he better darn well do his part.
But right here, this is a key element, right? So I've written a book about the couples that split up, exhausted wives, bewildered husbands, because women make their men too comfortable. And they preserve him from facing discomfort, and they think in some capacity that's going to make him become a man, as if preserving him and protecting him is going to make him into a man, because he'll be so grateful for her love and nurturing that he will then step forward. No. That's not how boys become men. Boys become men when they experience enough pain that they have no choice but to grow and become stronger. This is why when a woman has enough and she says, okay, that's it, I can't do this anymore, we need a divorce, the man says, wait, I'm willing to try now. Right? Now he's uncomfortable. When the lights go off and everybody sits there and says, what happened? And he says, I didn't do this. And then everyone looks at him and says, Dad, why don't we have light? Why did you fail us? That level of shame and stress and pain and guilt, that's what men need to step forward and say, shoot, I need to make sure this never happens again.
Well, and you know, all of us do. I mean, and I think part of raising kids, you know, because you love your kids so much, you don't want to see your kids hurt, right? You don't want to see your kids struggle or go through pain. That's a bad mindset because you have to allow them to sit in the consequences of their choices. That's the only way they're going to grow and get stronger and stronger. If you bail them out, like I always use the example when I'm teaching, I say, you know, little Johnny forgot his lunch at school. Office calls, hey, Johnny forgot his lunch at school. Mom, okay, I'll be right down. Next day, Johnny forgot his lunch again. Mommy, oh, I don't want him to be hungry. I don't want him to be uncomfortable. And I say, if he went one day without his lunch, do you think he'd forget? And then he might need 2 days without lunch before he remembers. But you keep bailing him out. You don't allow him to be responsible because you keep enabling him. You are at fault, Mom, not Johnny. Mom's at fault. So I think, you know, even in how we have been raised, if you had a parent that always bailed you out of everything, and I get it, I'm a parent. I don't want to see my kids suffer either. But there are times when it's like, you have to go through this. Sorry. You got to go through it to be a good adult.
Speaking of pain as a teacher, right? I want to bring this back around because I'd love to get your take on this.
Okay.
The pain as a teacher. So we talked a little bit about earlier, and you said something perfect, that if the man is not going to step forward and be masculine, then the woman has to, right?
Yeah.
The woman has to. And something you said earlier really resonated with me that I've heard a million times from my female coaching clients, from women in my community that I work with, women in comment sections everywhere, which is my mom told me, don't trust a man. You have to go to school. You have to be financially independent. My mom told me because my dad left her or my grandpa left my grandma, and it's been passed down. There's so much trauma passed down on the female lines in especially in America that it's most of our male female dynamics are trauma based. And I'm wondering how much you think that women have played a role in crushing femininity in younger women versus
Yeah.
even men have played a role. I don't know that it's
Yeah.
men. I mostly see women smothering femininity.
Oh,
What
sure,
do you think?
sure. It is. Like men crave femininity. They love it. They need it. It rejuvenates them. It renews them. It's the women that have trained their daughters because they probably were trained by their moms, back in the 60s when the whole feminist movement came in. Again, it started out with some good ideas, but then it turned into empowering women means we have to disempower men. In fact, we don't even need men. Now we have equal pay, equal rights. What do we need men for? We don't even need men to have a baby. We just go to the sperm bank. I can raise them on my own. I don't need men. And I think that is such a lie from the pit of hell. And I think that is what has screwed women's minds up. That's what I was being taught. And that's why I said, and when I met the Lord, and then I met my husband, and I'm very blessed. I married a good man. He has loved me well, and he is a responsible man. I mean, he's never had a late charge in his life. I mean, he's a very responsible man. Not a perfect man. I'm not either, but perfect for me. He's perfect for me. Anyway, and I know not all women get that, but you have to be wise when you choose, right? You need to really choose. Be wise when you choose. Okay, I got it. Oh wait, I know you asked me something, but I want to say this before I forget. When you said something about all these single alcoholic women, do you know that when women drink, they go into their masculine energy, and when men drink, they go into their feminine energy? And if you think about it, look at the bar fights between men because they're all emotional now because they've been drinking. They're getting in fights and they're getting angry, right? And then women get loud and overly confident when they drink, if they drink too much, and they become men. And men, so I just think that's kind of an interesting little thing to just notice, when it comes to alcohol. Anyway, so you asked me something. Did I?
Absolutely.
Did I answer
The
that?
role. So let me ask you
Oh,
this: what
women.
I had asked you, I even have a better question now because
Okay,
that was brilliant. What I had asked you was, do you think it's men or women smothering femininity now? And you had said you think it's definitely women, especially
women.
older
Oh,
women,
for
that
sure.
trauma role. Um, so let me ask you this:
Okay.
I have seen throughout history, right, that we go through periods where the men die off, women become masculine, they carry the family forward, and then sort of society begins to heal,
Mm.
right? And then we go back into the masculine feminine polarity to survive again. And then society grows. And then you have a trauma event. And then, the men die off. And the women have to pick up and carry
Yeah.
forward. And we sort of have those cycles
Cyclical.
continuously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and I see in the young women of today, Generation Z, many of them that I talk to who are 20 years old and whatnot. Many of them come into my mentorship community. Many of them are in the comment sections. Ladies, you're probably out there right now listening to this because you're so hungry for femininity and what to do. Many of them I think are healing, right? The old meme, nature is healing. I think many young women today want to become feminine.
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
you think we are at a place, an appropriate place, where women can really lean into femininity again? Do you think men are adequately masculine to really be able to
Hmm.
take on that role and the responsibility? Or do you think that men still have work to do before the young women of today are able
Hmm.
to step into their feminine energy? Or
Yeah.
is there maybe a third way?
And I know we're talking generally speaking. Um, and I know, everybody's always asking me too, like, don't you feel like men have become so passive? And it could be that, lots of men grew up without dads in the home. It could be that because people will ask me, men will ask me, well, how do I become more masculine? I'm like, you know what? I'm a woman and I can't teach you that. You need to learn to be masculine from another man. See, dads were supposed to teach the boys, their sons, what a man is, right? But I know a lot of men didn't get that. So, um, I tell men, find a man that you respect, that you look up to, that would mentor you, even from a distance, because you read his book or you follow him on social media, or you get in his group or whatever. But find men that you look up to, that you respect, that are like minded, and watch them, and those need to become your role models. I can't teach you that. I'm a girl, and it's not my job to solve that problem, but other men can teach other men, is what I think. So, and I think we need really good role models. I always tell women, um, when you go to marry a man, you need to look at the men in his circle, the men around him. And I say, don't marry a man that doesn't have good men that he respects in his circle. It could be his dad, it could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be a pastor, whatever. But like, because those men will advocate for the woman. Like my husband and we always had good men in our lives that my husband really respected. And when he and I would come to a standstill, because you're going to have those conflicts, and we could not see eye to eye on certain things, I would say to him, okay, let's take this to this guy that you love and respect and honor. And if I am in the wrong, I'll step down. And if you're in the wrong, you step down. I go, because we can't figure it out. Let's go to someone you respect. You pick the guy. And every time I'd say that, he'd go, well, okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think we can figure this out because he was embarrassed. And he knew I was right. And he knew that they would take my side because there was usually things that he knew he should do that he didn't want to do. Right. So that's 9 times out of 10, I would say that. But I was willing to listen and learn too.
That's so true. The men in my life, they are so pro marriage and they are so pro
That's awesome.
family that if I ever got in a case where I was an idiot and wanted to do
Right.
something hurtful for my family, that was wrong for my family,
Yeah.
my buddies would take me out in the woods and beat me with sticks
Absolutely.
until I got my head on straight.
Absolutely.
And not even because they just like my wife, but because they would say, "How dare you act this way
Right.
to your family
Right.
and our and all of us? Like we don't want a man like you around us."
Yes.
So the men who call you to account, that's what men are missing today, is that brotherhood, I think.
Yes. And
Men need
I
other
think
men.
they need a community. It takes a village, right? To raise a family and to stay married. And yes, you have other people around you that will hold you accountable. And I will say, don't go talk to somebody that's going to badmouth your wife. Don't, and for the woman, don't talk to somebody who's just going to take your side. Like I posted a reel recently, and I said, my husband and I, we keep our issues inside of our marriage. And because I know if I talk to my friends, they're going to take my defense. Or if I talk to my family members, because they like me, they're going to take up my defense. I can only talk to someone who's going to be objective. And I don't want them to take up my defense. If I'm wrong, I want them to tell me I'm wrong. I don't want them just to go, because we love you, we side with you. I don't want you to take sides. I want, and so I, in my circle, like, and here's nothing, I would not tell my junk to people in my circle because there's no one in my circle that can help me. We're peers. I need to go to someone who knows more than me that can help me, and that's who I'm going to listen to. Okay, and not that my girlfriends and I don't confide in each other. We do, but I just would never take our marital issues to people that can't help. And you want to make sure it's somebody that can be objective and see both sides and not take
I
one
love
side.
that.
So,
Can I ask you something controversial?
sure.
Might get us in trouble, but it'll be a good kind
Okay.
of trouble.
Ooh, I like that stuff.
Um, so men, we've talked about so far today, men are supposed to provide that safety. Men are supposed to provide that stability. Men are supposed to have people around them that will take them out into the woods and beat them with sticks if they're not honest and,
They
and,
mess
and
up.
have integrity, right? You're supposed to do that. Men are supposed to fight tooth and nail to survive. Men are going to be gone for a period of time. I saw a great reel the other day talking about how, women claim they sacrifice so much for the men, but what do men sacrifice? Missing every milestone with their kids, the days spent away, the days spent working 16 hours, their dignity, right? Working in hard jobs they hate, losing limbs and fingers and teeth and hair in jobs that they hate, and that men are sacrificing. Men are doing that today. And a lot of the young men that I talk to today, age 20, even up to 30, are saying, Adam, I am expected to give everything, every minute of every day, my blood, my sweat, my tears, my entire paycheck. I'm supposed to risk everything. I'm supposed to have these children and then barely even be able to see them because I'm providing for them. What are women going to do in return apart from sex? And I wish I can hire somebody for, arguably, right? Apart from sex, what is it that women will do for me? So let me ask you, because we aren't allowed to say this. We'll be nailed to a tree if we try to talk about this. I'd love to hear your educated opinion on this. What do women owe to men in romantic relationships, assuming he's a good man, assuming
Okay.
he's masculine, assuming he is loving and honorable? What does she owe to that man?
I'm really glad you said assuming. We're talking about good, wholesome, healthy men, because a lot of men will use my material and weaponize it against their wives. And I'm like, oh no, he's a full blown sociopath, narcissist, chronic liar. I'm not talking about him. No, I'm talking talking about you're healthy. Don't let him weaponize my information. And I see women doing that too. But women are, they're there. We were created, we were designed to be a man's helpmate. And a helpmate isn't like a subservient slave. I mean, a helpmate is an ally. We're together as a team. So I will have your back. I will take up the slack where you're tired. And I saw something. Brene Brown posted something, and I thought this was fabulous. She said, sometimes I come home and I'll say to my husband, I'm exhausted. I got maybe 10% left of me. And he'll say, cool, I got the 90. And then other times he'll come home and say, I got 20%. She goes, I got the 80. It's like, that's a team. Like sometimes you're more tired. Sometimes I'm more tired, like whatever. And we're not competing about who's more tired. We're there to take up the slack for each other, have each other's back. Women are to support, enhance, comfort, nurture, however that looks for your man. Once I got a question, well, how much nurturing does a man need? As much as he needs. I don't know. He's not my man. I know how much my man needs. I don't know how much yours needs, but he needs what he needs, So I love to cook for my husband. He loves my cooking. He's so appreciative. If I say I don't want to cook, he would take me out every night of the week if I wanted to. But I enjoy cooking. I like eating healthy. I know what's in my food. I don't know what's in the restaurant food. And he loves my cooking. I don't feel like he's using me, abusing me. I'm his slave. He's so appreciative. I'm happy to do that. I do laundry. I wash, clean, fold. If I didn't do it or couldn't do it, he would do it. But he doesn't need to. I do it. I don't mind doing it. It's like, to me, it's just that it's like, grow up. Be an adult. Be mature. It's not about who's getting more or giving more. It changes. It's cyclical. There's times in our marriage where I'm more of the giver. There's times where he's more of the giver. It just depends on what life is throwing you at in the moment, But if you can learn to work together, find out what your man needs from you. And men, find out what your wife needs. It's called communication. Talking. We're not trying to take advantage of each other, abuse each other. We're just trying to work as a team to the best of our knowledge.
Correct. I love that so much. So in other words, what I'm hearing is what a woman owes to a man is if he is providing that safety, that shelter, that nurturing, if that protection, if he is being the masculine leader, then your job is to help him in that role to reach success so that you reach success together.
Yes. If you're at home and he's working full time, you're in charge of the kids. And he walks home through the door. You don't throw the kids at him because you're exhausted. He's exhausted too. We're both exhausted. But you know what? And I always say this to women, and I get so much pushback. But I say men need a transition time. When they're transitioning from work to home or from home to work, like men don't transition as fast as women do, and has everything to do with, you probably know this, that corpus callosum thing in our brain. Men's are wider, ours are narrower, so we can go back and forth like right brain, left brain faster than a man can. Men are very single focused. That comes from the testosterone, right? But as we age, then our hormones start to change and men's corpus callosum starts to get narrower and women's gets wider. Isn't that interesting? So now women, as we age, we become more get to the point, single focus. Men become more emotional, sensitive, more words. I've seen it. My husband and I were in our 60s. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning into a man. And he's turning into a woman. Like now he's the wordy one. And I'm like, get to the point. I used to be the talker. Now and we laugh at each other. We're like, but we just think it's fun. It's like blaming on our hormones, blaming on the brain. We're not doing it on purpose. Anyway, so I always tell women, men need a little bit longer transition time from work to home, let's say. So when he comes in, let him relax. Let him, unload the keys, the phone, the wallet, change into his comfy, old, ugly clothes that he loves wearing. He needs every man has a transition ritual. Like he might need to get a sports update, or maybe he needs to go take a quick nap, or let him have that. And I always ask men, how much time do you need when you first get home? And they always say, about 30 minutes. Every single man I ask, right about 30 minutes. And then he'll be more available to the woman. his wife and to the kids. But if he doesn't get that time to just like decompress for a few minutes, you're not going to get the most out of him. He's not going to really be present. And then in that time he's decompressing, his testosterone is starting to rebuild, and that's going to be better for you, lady, especially when it comes to bedroom. Okay, so now women will say, well, what about me? I work full time too. I need transition time. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But what the thing is, women transition faster than men. Again, because the way our brains and hormones are set up. It doesn't mean you don't get to zone out. Yes, but it's like, okay, honey, you go take your time, and then I gotta have some time. And again, you're working together as a team. Okay, I'll be in charge of cleaning up dinner while you go take a bath. And it's back and forth. It's give and take, but you make it work.
I agree with you. I love that. The mental image I try to give to my couples when I do couples coaching is most men are workhorses. Like most of us, we
Yeah.
are workhorses. Even the guys who are not great at anything emotional, even the guys who are jerks are still workhorses,
Yeah. They're
right? And
compelled to work hard. Yes.
yeah, you take even the most narcissistic jerk of a guy, he probably still is working himself to death, taking
Yeah.
care of his family, running they have a home, they have food, they have cars, they have shoes, they have clothes, they have everything. He's a workhorse, okay?
Yeah.
Men are the workhorse in the harness, dragging the family wagon.
Right.
The
Right.
woman's job, in my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
is to do everything to help him get that wagon
Yes.
forward because that's their wagon. It's not
Right.
his wagon, it's their wagon.
Right.
You have a workhorse pulling that wagon.
Right.
The woman can be out in front clearing the path. She can be on the side checking the workhorse and covering his wounds and taking
Yeah.
care of his hooves. She
Yeah.
can be in the other harness pulling with him, right? If you're both
Right.
working, two income homes, right? If that's necessary. But what she must not do is climb up and sit in the wagon and whip the workhorse saying you're not going fast enough and I
That's
don't like how you looked at me and you're not a nice enough workhorse. If you're
yeah.
doing that, you're going to kill your workhorse or he's going to break free and leave you or
Right.
everybody else is going to get mad at you because
Yeah.
you're the person ruining this ride.
Right. And he's under stress. And I think women forget about and especially if they're not full-time working women, they forget about how stressful, it is for a man and working and everything he takes upon himself as the masculine man that, if his wife's not happy, he he's not happy. It's like and it's funny how other men will look at men and they look at the wife, and if the wife is happy, their respect for the man goes up. So, man, you're doing a good job. And I remember we had one young couple. We had done premarital with them, married them, and then they were having problems right after marriage. And my husband sat down with the husband, young guy, and he said, "What's the problem?" He goes, "You can't make one woman happy, just one." He goes, "What's going on here?" He goes, "That's all you got to do, just one woman." He goes, what's going on? And the guy was like, "Oh," but what it did is it like put into this young man that you're responsible to take care of her. Now, her happiness is her responsibility, but you know what I mean. Like you're responsible to make this work. What are you doing? And so they had conversation, but it's like, okay. So I think what you're saying, the analogy with whipping the horse, men are simple beings. They're simple. All right. They need sex. They need a sandwich. They need silence. You heard the angel. And it really is true. Yes. Make sure he is clothed, clean, and fed. Physically fed, sexually fed, before you send him out. And I was taught that as a young mom, a young bride, because my husband always traveled. And I remember older women saying to me, "You never want to send him out hungry sexually." Okay. It's too tempting. It's just too tempting. They're in hotels. They got TVs in hotels. They got bars in hotels. Like, you don't want to send him out hungry. You always want to make sure he's fulfilled at home before he goes out. And I took that seriously. I would send panties in his suitcase, pictures of our family in his suitcase, and make sure we always had sex before he left. Because he needs that. And I want him to go out full so he's not looking, he's not hungry, and he knows I'm at home waiting for him.
I will speak to that really quick because plenty of women are going to hear that and say, "Well, it's not my job to make sure he doesn't cheat." Well, yeah, it's not your job.
It's true.
You should be marrying a man who is ethical, moral, and has his own discipline in check. But you also shouldn't make his life harder, where
Right.
he's going to go out and face a billion temptations. And now he's saying,
Right.
"Dang, Like you don't want him to wander through his life thinking, oh, another temptation, oh, another struggle,
Right.
another, where
Yeah.
he's just
And if
starving all the
if
time.
he's full, he's not. He can resist temptation. I mean, men are always going to be tempted because they're men. But we need to do our part, and like you say, not make it harder for them. I had a woman years early on in my marriage, maybe, I don't know, married probably 10 years, 15 years. And she said, I went to her house, and she says, well, so how are you going to keep your husband from having an affair? And looked at her, and the first thing I came out of my mouth, I said, I'm not. And she goes, what? I go, I can't keep him from having an affair. If someone wants to have an affair, mess around, they're going to find a way to do it. No matter what I do, no matter how good a woman I am to him. I said, I can't. I said, I hope and pray that he never does. And I need to do my best to bring the absolute best version of him out as far as, respecting him and appreciating him and all those things. I said, but bottom line, again, that's not the woman's job. Hopefully you married a man with integrity and that isn't and has the same moral values that you do.
The wife's job is not to make the man be moral and ethical and not have an affair, but it
Right.
is her job to make it easy for him to stay
Yes.
faithful.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
That's it.
Agree.
That's it. I love this. We're going to get in a lot of trouble for this episode. I can't wait for the comments. Everybody at home writing there that you've already tapping the keys. You probably left 15 comments. Leave more.
Yeah.
If you think we're right, if you think we're wrong, I'd love to hear from you. Which parts of this resonated, which parts did not. Hit us up. Danielle, thank you so much for being here. Please tell everybody at home what you're working on and where they can find you so that they can learn more from you.
Okay, so right now, we have some ideas of stuff coming up. I haven't done my normal seminars. Those kind of got less and less during the pandemic, and then I was having small groups in the home and doing monthly things. But since we started the podcast, right now we are just building our audience, and then I probably will eventually start doing webinars. People are saying write a book. I'm like, I don't know why that scares me, but I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we'll see. I don't know. But so right now I'm just continuing to do what I do. Podcast, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Threads, pretty much across the board. Anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
What's your name on Instagram? What's your at?
Danielle Catherine Hage. Okay,
Beautiful.
so there's also a Danielle Hage. That's my daughter-in-law. 2 L's, Danielle. I'm Danielle Catherine, 1 L, Danielle Catherine Hage.
Danielle Catherine Hage. We're going to link that below in the description so that you guys can find her beautifully. Thank you so much for being here today. I cannot wait to have you on again and talk to you because this is just the beginning of our relationship.
So
and we're going to
fun.
have many more conversations to get in trouble.
And you have to come on my podcast too.
I will do that. That sounds like fun.
We'll pick a date. We'll get in touch and pick a date. Yeah. I said I would love to have someone to come talk about attachment theory on my podcast for sure.
I know a guy. I'll be there. To everybody at home, thank you for listening. We'll be back.
Thank you.